Hey, welcome to Sound Up, your direct connection to everything going on in the world of music. I'm Mark Goodman.
And this is Alan Light. And if you're already a fan, you know the drill. But if you're new here, here's how the Sound Up podcast works.
All right. We do 2 shows each week, one on Tuesday and one on Friday. Both will feature up-to-the-minute music news, special guests, and whatever you need to know about what's happening currently in the world of music.
On our second show each week comes the Sound Up Sound Off, where we welcome you to join the show, whether as part of our virtual audience or by voice messages and email. Find out how at sounduppod.com. And a note, we're recording our next Sound Up Sound Off at a special time this week, Tuesday, February 27th at 6 p.m. Eastern. Again, go to sounduppod.com for all the details and logistics.
All right, let's do this. Let's get into Sound Up.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
Welcome to Sound Up. I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
And boy, do we have a show for you today. We've got a great guest. Record producer, Grammy winner, and head of S-Curve Records, Steve Greenberg, is going to join us to have a little discussion on the decline of bands, groups, and duos. Are solo acts the way of the future for music?
I am really fascinated to get into this with Steve.
Yeah.
He will explain, but he did some research. He's a stats guy. And discovered in a TikTok era, not coincidentally, that all the momentum is moving towards solo acts and away from groups, especially from vocal groups on the pop charts. I want to hear how he even thought to start to pursue this, what he noticed, and what we can conclude from the numbers he came up with. Plus, we have a bunch of music news on Selena Gomez, Rage Against the Machine, Olivia Rodrigo, Paul McCartney, and, as always, our favorite, the ever-entertaining Liam Gallagher, who did announce, I don't know if you saw this, some of the tour dates with John Squire.
I read that he did, yeah, but not here.
There's a Brooklyn date.
There is one Brooklyn. Okay. I didn't see any U.S. dates. All right. That's a little something. When was that date? Do you remember?
It's in the spring. I don't remember. They're reopening, just not to get too into it, but what was the Brooklyn Paramount Theater?
Yeah.
Downtown Brooklyn is reopening, and they announced their sort of opening slate of shows through the springtime, and that was one of the acts that was announced.
All right. I wonder if he'll just maybe wind up having a date in Cleveland somewhere, maybe in the fall. Who knows? You never know. Anyway, where should we start with news?
First, you went to see a show this weekend I want to hear about.
I did. I went to see, for the first time, by the way, Jason Isbell and the 400 unit. Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of theirs for so many years, and for some reason it took me so long to get to see them. They were playing Radio City. I was thrilled to see them in that kind of a venue. Jaw hit the floor. Just song after song. I've been listening to his records forever, especially even the most recent one I really love.
It's great.
And
it's great.
He does, it varies from night to night, but he does, 5 or 6 songs from that album alone. He's got quite a catalog. And, he is a freaking insane guitar player, like ridiculous. And I'm blanking on the other lead guitar player in the band, just like dueling guitars.
Oh, yeah. It is a power. I mean, the whole show's a powerhouse, but I think you don't really appreciate his playing until you see him. Of course, he came up with Drive-By Truckers. He was a guitar player.
Right. Exactly. People forget that. And I was reminded of that. And it's, if there's anything that I would say, and this is not necessarily a diss, this is merely an assessment. I am not a jam band guy. I'm not, the Fish fan. I don't go and see, all the Dead offshoots. And even, Warren Haynes, they're great. Love them, but that's not my, stock and trade. And this got a little jam bandy.
It's a little Allman Brothers-y. It does at times. It's true. But the songs are so good. The foundation of the songs
are so good. That's why I was happy to see at Radio City, because you can hear his words clearly. And you're right, they are stunning. He wears his influences on his sleeve. Oh, there's some Neil Young. Oh yeah, there's the Allman Brothers. Yeah, I think that's Whipping Post, isn't it? It's literally like, oh, I recognize that. Is that Cowgirl in the Sand? Yeah, I think that's Cowgirl in the, so what? What is the phrase, that great artists borrow and amazing artists steal?
Good artists borrow, great artists steal, yes.
Not a diss whatsoever. And he's he's upfront about his influences, and he makes no bones about where he came from. And I find that really kind of charming, and it's fine. It's sort of a reference point as opposed to a cop.
I'm so glad you got to go. I didn't realize you'd never seen him.
Yeah.
I dealt with it too late, and I had another show Saturday night that I went to, and so didn't go. I, at the last minute, thought, God, I should be going to that. But he's always just so strong. And
changes up the set. You know, I guess a lot of us, I always now check Setlist FM to see what's been going on in the cities, you know, before me. And it's helpful to me. And he changes up the set a lot. Some songs come out, like I was saying before we came on here, Death Wish to me from this new album. That was the big hit. And he did not do it in New York City. He did not do it at the New York gig. He did it in Philly. But I was checking his set list for over the last, 5 or 6 or 7 dates. He doesn't do it every night. He does Cover Me Up. He does We Were Vampires. Oh, man. If you have never seen him, please just go and see him. Cover Me Up. This Ain't It. 24 Frames. Decoration Day. He does a Drive-By Truckers song as well. And yeah.
Look, I think the challenge for a long time, and I think he's gotten closer. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but I didn't realize you hadn't seen him. The records are really good, but the records do not get all the way to what he is on a stage.
Yeah, I actually was moved by that.
He is still, I think, trying to figure out how to get that feel and that power translated onto records. And it is hard. It is a completely different thing to do. But you see him and you're like, oh my God, if you could actually capture that and convey that on the records, the people who sort of are kind of there or, don't totally hear it would all just swing right over into fandom.
So I went with my wife, who is, sort of a casual listener generally, right? And I've been playing the record, so she kind of knows. And she, going in, was like, okay, this is going to be kind of a mellow night. But, oh no. And she walked out a huge fan, because of the lyrics. And when you're sitting there and you're presented with him and the band live. A couple of things I wanted to mention. The fiddle player was missing. Amanda Shires, he filed for divorce on February 4th, just minutes ago. And he mentioned it at one point during the night, not specifically, just sort of said, it's been a rough few weeks and I can use some fun, some up-tempo. He just lightly referred to it. So I was sort of disappointed that I didn't get to see them on stage together. The other thing was that I didn't know until the week of the show that Amy Mann was opening.
Yes, that's right.
She's on some of the dates, not all of the dates. I think in Philly he had a different opener. She's not on all of them. And I hadn't seen Amy Mann since Magnolia. So however long that is, 20 years or something, 25 years. Again, not for everyone, but I love her.
I love her. I mean, I saw her, I think, last year at City Winery, and I just love her.
It's a certain something, certain,
of course.
A certain, her cadence and her, the way that she puts her notes together, her harmonics, a certain kind of sound that she has. And if you don't like it, you're not going to like the show. But I'm with you. I thought she was really great. My wife was like, is she going to do voices, Carrie? I'm like, I don't think so, honey. She was a little disappointed there, but
can't have to let that one go.
We'll let it go. But that's my concert review. I was just thrilled to death. So good.
So real briefly, kind of sort of bringing us into news, it is worth noting that once again, the number one film at the box office in this country was One Love, the Bob Marley biopic. It is now over $70 million in U.S. revenue, over $120 million box office around the world.
Massive.
And has broken out as a really significant hit.
Irima.
I think against, some expectation. So we talked about it last week. I don't want to spend a lot of time with it, but I did see it over the weekend. I liked it.
I'm not expecting much more.
No, I can't stop thinking about it because it's so many things. The two big broad stroke things are, does it make you go back and listen to Bob Marley and the Wailers music? Yes, absolutely it does. And that's what this is all about. That's the win. Like that answers the question. And if this is the version of Bob Marley that the world sort of now takes as this is who the guy was, I don't have a big problem with that. Like, I don't think there's anything that's sort of dramatically off about this as a distillation of, that's, it's okay. But I spent so much time thinking about who is a movie like this for. And we talked about it last week. if you know too much, look, I've read 800 books about Bob Marley, like I'm that kind of a fan. And you start to, inevitably you start to nitpick and you start to challenge things and you start to, why isn't this here? Why? So that is one thing. If you really don't know anything, and I was thinking a lot about a note we got from one of our listeners, I think from Piano Tuner Paul last week, saying he couldn't follow it. Like he liked it, but there was so many little things that felt like you need to know what that is or what is going on to really understand why that's even in the movie. I can get that. There are moments where you can see it's sort of a negotiated script of like, well, we have to put this in, but you don't really get the context or the understanding. If you know the story, you see it and you're like, oh, well, that's what that is. I get it. But if you come to it cold, as he was saying, there's things that just seem like sort of weird dead ends or like not clear.
I took that to be an invitation to go deeper. It's only like 2 years of the guy's life. So
look, I think that the concentration on the 2 years that it focuses on, I actually think that works for this story, from the first Unity concert and the assassination attempt to going, to fleeing Jamaica and going to England and making the record and coming back for the other Unity show and bringing the political parties together. Like as a framing device, that works. Right. But it does limit. Like this is very much the love and unity Bob Marley. Mm-hmm. Now, the records before that weren't that. It's not Burnin' and Lootin'. It's not Them Belly Full. And the records after that, it's not Survival. It's not Uprising. This is a particular moment where his music he's trying to be more accessible, trying to reach more of a pop audience. He says that in the film, and that's the era that it documents. But it does sort of give you a certain representation of this guy that is not all the complexity about what he was and what that career was. I think they could have dumped like half of the sort of flashbacks and it would have been fine. Like we just didn't need to go back to this thing of sort of confronting his father.
The daddy riding out of the field on fire.
Six times. And then it doesn't really land. The big payoff at the end of Haile Selassie becomes the father, doesn't really land. And like, okay.
I agree.
But at the other hand, like who cares?
What did you think? There's sometimes I feel like it works and other times not. In this movie, I thought that it did. The real footage at the end of the movie where you see the real guy saying the real things.
It's always a little tough of like,
jarring in a way.
Well, I mean, not jarring, but also like, we could have just been watching him for 2 hours. It's a little bit of like, oh, right. I should just go watch Look, I think it's great that they do the cut to him with Michael Manley and Eddie Seaga on stage and the moment of, from the beginning, that's where it's going to end. But to see that is still a really powerful thing. Now, I have to say that opening thing with Ziggy sort of endorsing the film, I did not like at all. I know you said you did. The people I was with were like, that made me not want to like this movie.
Interesting.
That was too hard a sell. Like, of course you endorse the film. Like, we're looking at it. We don't need you to also tell us.
Yeah.
If you didn't like it, you wouldn't put it out. I don't need you to get there and tell us that you like it.
I understand that. I guess what I had in my mind, the reason that I kind of accepted it as a stamp of approval was because I do know that the estate is, although, like I said last time when we were talking about it, they're all about licensing. They're happy to merchandise the shit out of the guy, but at the same time, I know are very protective of his image and his likeness and so on. So I thought, okay, his best known son signs off. Okay.
I have to say, I think that the reviews, and then we can get into some news, but I think that the reviews really did miss. I was ready for that it just isn't going to address the extramarital affairs and the other kids at all, and that it wasn't going to address the politics at all, and that it was going to sort of whitewash sort of what Rasta, is about. And all of those things, they're there. I mean, of course, you could make them much more the focus of the film, but I don't think it ignores those aspects. I was actually glad that it spent as much time on the Rasta stuff, on the religion stuff as it did.
Me too.
Because you can't understand him and you can't understand his work without actually having some understanding of that stuff. And so I thought letting that, giving that some time to sort of play out and explain was an important thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect project, but I feel like some of the reviews, again, I don't know if it's that the expectations are too high for what this is or for which audience it's for. They sort of missed the mark on some of that.
Yeah. What was the worldwide total again? 100 million?
120 million plus for, 2 weekends out.
It's reaching somebody.
It's absolutely reaching somebody. And again, if you look at like the Rotten Tomatoes thing, it's like the critics number is one thing, the audience number is another thing.
Yes.
Audiences are really responding to this film, and that's, not to be ignored at all. So
love that.
All right, so let's get into some other newsy stuff.
Let's do that.
Did you listen to the new Selena Gomez single, by the way?
Yeah.
I find it hard to take her seriously as a musician right now. Like, even as a pop star, I'm like, it's the girl from Only Murders in the Building singing.
Me too, and that's not fair to her.
It's not, but it's...
But I know what you mean. I thought it was just me.
The song is fine.
Yeah.
Fine pop song. It's okay. It's a couple of lyrics I would have rewritten, but it's okay. But I'm just like, her voice comes in and I sort of can't, I'm just giggling when it comes on. Anyway,
are you like waiting for like Martin Short to do
Martin
like
Short to bust in, right? So Selena Gomez was on Jimmy Kimmel and played a trivia game about herself against a Selena Gomez superfan, and of course lost.
Trampled.
Which is, as we've said over and over again, they don't think about this stuff. Only we think about this stuff. That's what you learn, especially writing books with some of these guys. Like, they don't know which night was which show or they played which.
Right.
The Beatles don't know which songs are on Revolver and which songs are on Rubber Soul.
Right.
So she lost the Who Knows Selena Gomez game. But when Jimmy Kimmel asked if there was any celebrity she was obsessed with, who was your Selena Gomez, her answer was, yes, Kurt Cobain.
Of course. I mean,
Of course.
I could see that. What?
Selena Gomez was not yet 2 years old when Kurt Cobain died. But she says, my mom would play all kinds of music for me growing up. I kind of got obsessed, dyed my hair, cut my hair like him, would rewatch his interviews and watch his performances. And I've seen his documentary like 12 times. I know a little too much, she says. So, okay. I don't know what we conclude from that.
Do we believe her? I guess we believe her.
I believe her. Look, I think he's become, this is a certain thing, but I don't think there's a day where I don't see a kid in a Nirvana t-shirt.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think there's one day when I don't see that on the street somewhere.
Yeah, but doesn't the thought go through your mind? I wonder if they've ever listened to one of his songs.
Yeah, but I believe that they have. I think that's, as generational marker. So I believe it. All right, speaking of influence, Paul McCartney in the McCartney, A Life in Lyrics podcast has acknowledged something that for years he kind of ran away from. The notion that Yesterday had been inspired by his mother, who died in 1956 when Paul was 14. He's always said, that's not really true, but now is thinking, you know what, maybe it's kind of right. Some did suggest to me that this was a Losing My Mother song, he said, which I always said, no, I don't think so. But the more you think about it, why'd she have to go? I don't know. She wouldn't say. Losing your mother to cancer, no one said anything. We didn't know what it was at all. One line in particular, I said something wrong. Now I long for yesterday, brought a very specific memory to McCartney's mind. He said, I remember very clearly one day feeling very embarrassed because I embarrassed my mom. We were out in the backyard and she talked posh. She was of Irish origin and she was a nurse, so she was above street level. She had something going for her and she would talk what we thought was a little bit posh. And he made fun of her accent. She got a little bit embarrassed. And I remember thinking later, God, I wish I'd never said that. And it stuck with me. They're little things, but they're little things that I just wonder if I'd taken an eraser and rubbed that moment out, it'd be better. When she died, I wonder, I said something wrong. Are we hearkening back to that little thing? I suspect it might be true. It fits if you look at the lyrics.
Gosh, I hope no more of that comes out between now and when those 4 Sam Mendes movies comes out.
we got 3 years. Of course, this Life in Lyrics podcast, which is fun to listen to, he did the collection of his lyrics that came out a couple of years ago and worked with the poet Paul Muldoon going through all of his songs. And these are sort of the tapes from those interviews that they turned into the book and listening to the raw tapes of them talking about song by song. How could I possibly resist listening to that? So yes, I have been listening to it. Even knowing that I've read most of it in that book, much less.
I was going to say, check back when you got something new for us.
Well, this was
Revelations. All right.
So we are big Olivia Rodrigo fans here on Sound Up. Yeah. And Olivia kicked off her Guts World Tour on Friday in Palm Springs, California. Notably, she played all 12 songs from her second album, Guts, as well as the bonus track, and started the show with the first 3 songs on the new album. Gotta say, kind of ballsy to play your whole new album in your set.
If you're Rod Stewart, yes.
This is a classic from 20 years ago. We all know all these songs. We all love all these songs. That's one thing. To do it while the record is still out on all the charts and be confident to say they want to hear the singles, but they want to hear the other stuff too. Good on her.
Yeah. She's got 2 albums.
Yeah, well,
she really didn't have much choice, and luckily, it's a great record through and through.
Yeah, I mean that's you gotta have a record that's that strong, and you gotta believe that it's that strong.
Yeah.
Look, I saw her at Radio City touring when she just had the first record out, and she was fantastic. And yeah, it wasn't a Springsteen show, but she made a real show out of it. Mm-hmm. Can't wait to see with 2 great records under her belt when she comes through here in a couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, look, what the hell is she going to do? Selena Gomez covers? I mean, what? What?
I was going to say, especially if you're playing a room like the Garden, you can't put on a 60-minute show.
Yeah, I mean, 2 openers. She'll, I don't think she knows how to do it, but knowing she's doing the full album on not a lot of sophomore albums would work that way.
Agreed. And it is a cool thing to go in sequence because everybody sitting there listening, listened to those songs in sequence when the album came out. There's something for that. And it's tough generally to play an album in its entirety in the same order.
Well, I think she does some of that. I think then she breaks it up a little.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I go back to like when the Stones did that one show where they played Sticky Fingers. Even then, they're like, we're not playing it in order.
Right.
Like that's how you would listen to a record. That's not how you play it on a stage. So
exactly.
Didn't you 2 mix it up for the Joshua Tree tour as well?
They did.
So another icon, according to the BBC, plans to erect a statue of Motorhead frontman Lemmy in the town where he was born have been approved.
Love that.
Lemmy Kilmister, born in Burslem, one of the towns that is part of the city of Stoke-on-Trent in Staffordshire. I love just saying all of that. Burslem, part of Stoke-on-Trent in Staffordshire. So great. So they have approved the statue to be erected within the Burslem's marketplace, sculpted in Staffordshire clay by internationally renowned local sculptor Andy Edwards, installed on a 10-foot plinth designed to resemble an overhanging stage, which will include the Motorhead logo.
I'm so glad that it's a 10-foot plinth. I mean, who uses plinth?
Well, they increased the height of the plinth from 2.5 meters to 3 meters.
Well, that's important, with Lemmy.
They thought
you need a bigger plinth.
This is such a great quote. They raised the height after concern was expressed by police that the statue would attract good-natured but potentially incident-generating attention. So I guess they made it higher so people can't climb up on it and
take pictures with it, and climb into his arms, something. So, I want to know what about that? He is being immortalized. Does that giant frickin' thing on his face, is that on there too?
It's got
to be there.
Got to, larger than life, man.
There's one at the Rainbow, and I'm pretty sure it's on that one. So
there's a GoFundMe campaign to pay for the statue. Almost £5,000 have been contributed so far. Lemmy fans, look it up and toss in some cash. Throw some money in the hat.
So they need, does it say what they need?
It says that they need about 50,000 pounds.
Okay.
They're at about 5,000 pounds. So let's step it up, Lemmy fans.
So, they have increased the size of the plinth. So
that's right.
You'd better
Additional
get to donating. Those plinths are expensive these days.
You need a plinth guy.
Get a plinth guy. All right. So what else besides Lemmy?
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominee Liam Gallagher. Oasis, of course, one of those on the ballot this year. In a recent conversation with the Sunday Times, said, as much as I love Mariah Carey and all that, I want to say, do me a favor and fuck off. It's like putting me in the Rap Hall of Fame, and I don't want to be part of anything that mentally disturbed. I've done more for rock and roll than half of them clowns on that board. It's all a load of bollocks.
Right. Thank you.
Exactly as expected, exactly on script.
Fine.
He had previously posted, I don't need some wank award by some geriatric in a cowboy hat. Nobody is better. Nobody's better.
Can he host the show? That would just be great.
I just wonder, let's see if they wind up getting in. But I mean, is it completely out of the question? It must be, right? They're not going to ever stand on the same stage again, not even to play. I mean, what has Noel said? Anything? Or does he have the same attitude about it? I wonder, like, could you see if they get in, would Noel show up without Liam to accept the award? He would get heavy shit from his brother then.
Well, because he's concerned about that. Because he doesn't want to. Because he doesn't want to piss off Liam. Please.
Yeah.
No. And finally, recent Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees Rage Against the Machine. News from that, whatever we call it, divided camp. I'll just steal the lead from Stereo Gum because I like it. If you ask both members of Rage Against the Machine's rhythm section about the band's future, you'll get 2 different answers. When Rage were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last year, only Tom Morello showed up. Last month on Instagram, drummer Brad Wilk wrote, "I want to let you know that Tim, Zach, Tom, and I will not be touring or playing live again." Tim Comerford, on the other hand, isn't sure. And by isn't sure means he says he literally does not know. He has a new band. He has a new trio called 7D7D. They've put out some singles. They're planning to tour. And when asked about a Rage tour, he said, "I don't know. I don't get involved in that. I'm the bass player. I just wait for someone to tell me what to do." Oh, here, Roger will love this. Brad said what he said, but he's one step below me. Oh, he's one step above me. He's in the number 3 spot. I'm the low man on the totem pole. That's all I can tell you. I'm the bass player. The bass players are always the last people to find out about shit like that.
I thought it was the drummer.
He says even the drummer ranks higher than I do. He doesn't say that. I'm paraphrasing.
As it should be.
There's a reason that there are endless amounts of drummer jokes. I don't know.
So,
is there anything new out of that camp? Those guys have been saying that sort of thing since they come and they go. And when they got together, whenever that was, when they were, 4 or 5 years ago, they finally reunited on stage and they were, but it seems like up until that point, they're always wondering what Zach's going to do. Where's Zach? What's Zach doing? You know?
I'd say stay tuned, but that's a long term, not short term.
How about we'll call you? We'll let you know.
All right. So there's some headlines.
Fast look at some news. But while we're thinking bands and stuff, as we said at the top, we've got producer, label exec Steve Greenberg joining us in just a second to talk about the decline of bands. What? That is coming up next on Sound Up. Stay there.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
All right, welcome back. As promised, we are going to be joined by a special guest in just a second, but we wanted to remind you once again, Tuesday the 27th. Now, depending on when you're listening, that could be today or it could be tomorrow. But either way, Tuesday the 27th, we're going to do a new time for Sound Up, Sound Off, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. We're hoping that will give you, more of you, a chance to join in the discussion. You can join us live in our virtual audience and find out how you can do that by hitting us up at connect@sounduppod.com.
That's for the email, or just go over to sounduppod.com, the site, and see what information we've got. So you can join us Tuesday evening in the East and be part of our little soiree, our little group here.
All right. So producer, label executive Steve Greenberg took a look back over the best songs and the biggest music of 2023 in an essay that he put out with his Best of 23 playlist, which I was listening to all weekend. He came away with some pretty interesting observations, not the least of which is that groups are an endangered species. I'm here to explain. Grammy-winning producer and the president of S-Curve Records, Steve Greenberg. Steve, thank you for joining us. All right.
Good to see you.
Great to be on your podcast.
The first thing I want to ask you is, it's a great essay, and you have like a mailing list. Is that where that came from? And
I just sent it to our mailing list, and I also posted on the scurverecords.com website.
Okay, because it was really fascinating, and it's always great to get your take on the best ofs and, the most interesting and so on. But your observations for this past year, how did you come to the fact that you think that groups are dissipating? What led you to that?
How did you even think to look?
I just kind of was going through the year-end Hot 100 on Billboard, And I noticed that there were no groups. I don't know. I mean, we get a little bit fooled because there are so many collaborations between existing established artists. And we kind of then it obscures the fact that there are no groups. But then I went through the whole list and I saw that the only groups on the whole list were Grupo Frontera, which is a regional Mexican group, which crossed over to the Hot 100, and Old Dominion, which is a country group that crossed over to the Hot 100. But there are no pop groups, there are no R&B vocal groups, there are no hip hop ensembles, there are no rock bands, and I thought that was a really interesting change.
We should say, because it's the Hot 100 that we're talking about. It's that chart.
It's that chart because, I mean, obviously we're looking at, I was really looking at pop. Right. Obviously, if you look at alternative music, there's still lots of rock bands out there.
Right.
But they're not crossing over to pop. So the question is, why is that massive pop success becoming almost exclusive to solo artists or artists who are collaborating with other solo artists?
It's pretty dramatic. Then you went back through history and did the chart looking through. And I love, you and I've worked together, and I love that you're a stat guy, so you do all this. 2017, there were 19 songs by duos or groups in the year-end Hot 100. 2018, 17. 2019, there were 13. Then there's 7. Then there's 4. And in 2023, we're down to 3, one of them being a reissue. So this is more than just some weird blip or anomaly, but an actual trending thing.
Right. But if you go way back into ancient history, 50 years ago, there were 46 out of the Hot 100 of the year were duos or groups.
And your observation that the Grammy this year for best pop vocal by a duo or group or whatever it is was all one-off collaborations. There were none that were actual duos or groups.
Correct. So it's a big change from what used to be in the music business. And there are real reasons for it. I mean, it's not just a blip. There are actual trends that are causing this.
Can we blame the internet for this? Because the internet has fucked everything up, in my view.
We could partially blame social media for it, for sure. But there's also just the decline of rock bands in the pop world. Rock is still a vital genre in alternative music and in mainstream rock music, but it doesn't cross over to pop anymore. You turn on your local pop station or you look at your pop playlist on Spotify or whatever it is, and there's no rock bands. They're not crossing over. Rock has almost become a niche format now.
But even without that, when you think about R&B from the previous generation, you think of so many groups. You think of vocal in the 90s, you think of it's TLC and it's SWV and it's En Vogue and whatever it is. And, and hip hop, there were hip hop groups. That was a thing. And those are not really things anymore.
No, it's really interesting. I mean, I think part of it is that the manufactured groups have kind of gone away because there's this real resistance now to anything that's seen as manufactured or not authentic or an industry plant or all those kinds of things. So that category of groups has gone away. But even the authentic, organic groups that sort of just met in school and formed a group, that doesn't exist anymore either. And that's really where social media comes in. And a lot of the factors that determine social media success come in. And also a lot of the factors that make it easy to record at home by yourself come in. So what's happened, right, is that there's like both from the creator side and from the platform side, there are factors, right, that are favoring the individual over the group. On the creator side, it's just really easy and inexpensive and convenient to record at home. And if you are recording at home, it's certainly logistically easier to just do it yourself than to invite your friends over and organize a time where it all sort of works and get everybody in the same place to record. So it's just easier to make music by yourself than it is to make music with other people. Also, if you make music by yourself, you're not compromising your artistic vision. It used to be that, in order to make music, you needed a bunch of people together in general, mostly. And that requires compromise. Now it's so great because everyone just gets to express whatever they want to express without having to worry about what anybody else thinks, which is a big change in how music is made.
The other thing that you point out is that the pandemic had a lot to do with this.
Yeah, the pandemic really kind of fast forwarded us into the future in so many ways, right? And, whether it was having meetings virtually or, making music alone at home. But in the pandemic, you couldn't get together with anybody else. And so the whole trend towards making music by yourself at home really accelerated and it just stuck. Once it started to happen, it just didn't go away. But then the pandemic really coincided with the rise of TikTok. And the rise of TikTok really solidified a trend that had started with Instagram, which was that TikTok, like Instagram, is a format that really favors one face on the screen, looking straight at people. TikTok works best when the user feels like the creator is like their friend talking to them on FaceTime. Those are the best TikToks.
Right.
And that's one person. It's not a group of people. So, and by the way, the TikTok algorithm like literally favors a single face on the screen looking at the viewer.
What do you mean by that? What does that mean?
So there's a lot of factors that go into the TikTok algorithm, which explains like which users of TikTok get served which content, right? And there's all kinds of factors, and it could be anything from the subject matter, the words on the screen, the hashtags, whatever it is. But a lot of them are visual things. What color your shirt is, what your room looks like. There's so many things that go into that algorithm. I once had one of the heads of TikTok really explain to me, like, there are literally thousands of things that go into the algorithm, and they're always changing. And having one face on the camera is better than having two faces on the camera in general, all other things being equal. So it really favors individuals over groups because TikTok is perceived as sort of this intimate platform where people are talking to you sort of almost like on FaceTime. It favors kind of confessional, diaristic sort of content. And again, that just works better if it's one person than if it's more than one person. So both the content creators and the platforms are creating conditions that favor individuals over groups.
So you're noticing this and going through all this as a listener, but also as an executive and as a producer. And we should say, as we said at the top, this is Steve Greenberg is the guy who brought us Hanson, is the guy who brought us the Baha Men, was part of the Jonas Brothers introduction to the world. All of those are groups. That's what you've made a lot of your bones with. How does this affect the executive side of your brain? Do you see it as positive, negative, neutral when you're looking and seeing, okay, this is what the market is, this is where they're telling us to go?
Well, first of all, I think record companies in general, because they're following cues from TikTok, are signing more solo acts, right? Because they're signing things that are popular on TikTok. And since what's popular on TikTok are solo acts, they're signing solo acts. So it's a self-perpetuating cycle. As for me personally, I manage a band called AJR, right? Who are in fact a band. And it is definitely a challenge because, when you want to present yourselves as a band, which they do, it's very hard to say, ooh, let's just have TikToks with one person from the band because that works better. And that's a constant tension. And it's a thing that, sort of makes TikTok in some ways less appealing. It makes it less fun to do TikToks if you're a band because that like TikTok doesn't want you to be a band. They want one face on the camera, but you don't want to do that because you're a band.
Only the lead singer goes on the magazine cover. We've been having that fight for many, many decades.
Right, but it wasn't the band that did that. It was the magazine. Now they want the band to do it to themselves, right? So it's the stakes are even higher.
You make some other points in this, great points about women finally getting some just rewards. It was a good year.
Yeah, I think a lot has been written about the fact that, women really dominated the year-end charts. They dominated the Grammys for sure. All the big categories. I think every nominee except one in all the big categories was a woman. And it's so funny because it was just a few years ago, right before the pandemic, that the then head of the Grammys, Neil Portnow, sort of made a
career-killing response phrase, I think it was.
Thank you very much. And said, women need to step up. And this year was almost this emphatic response, like, okay, not only have we stepped up, but we actually are dominant. It's really because women have made great music, to be honest. And, the records have been incredible that female artists have done in the last few years. But I do also think, actually, let's throw social media into there for a second as well. I think that, young women like confessional content from other young women. Mm-hmm. And I think that has accelerated the trend towards female artists. And I think young men probably are less intimate and confessional in general in the content that they create on social media than young women are. So I think women in some weird way have a little bit of an edge in the TikTok world as far as young women who are singer-songwriters and content creators young women are attracted to confessional content that they can relate to about the experiences of other young women.
So this is the thing that bigger picture really fascinates me about you doing these analytics around this stuff, and I love you're a historian. You did your Speed of Sound podcast looking at some of these moments where pop music changed. You've written about that stuff, and always through the history of pop music and pop entertainment, we forget how much the technology actually drives the creativity, like how much that affects what the product is. When it was recorded on 78s and you could only put 3 minutes of music on a side, those Louis Armstrong records are all less than 3 minutes. Doesn't mean that they're better or worse. That's what you could do. So when, as digital music came in and people said, oh, the album is dying and, the album as a format is dying. Yeah, this is what happens. The technology changes and the way that people create and distribute stuff changes accordingly. And here's more examples of that.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, I've always been fascinated by how technology impacts both the creation, what music gets created, and how music gets from the creators or the record companies to the audiences. And, always new technologies will create walls between different audience groups or knock down walls that had separated different audience groups. And I think currently we have a media environment and a social media environment, especially because it's so favoring confessional, intimate content, has really, I think, helped accelerate the rise of so many female artists.
Do you think you in your position, how much do you pay attention when it comes to signing new artists? How much do you pay attention to all of this? How much do you pay attention to TikTok? Are you only signing TikTok artists?
I think we're in a challenging moment, and that when I say we, I mean the whole industry, and I include myself. I think that one of the great things that record executives could do historically was to identify a talented artist who had absolutely no fans and just say, wow, I think you're great. And we're going to go into the studio and we're going to make a record and we're going to try to get your music exposed to the world. And let's go get you from 0 fans to hopefully millions of fans. And that was really what the music business did. Right. And I certainly look at my own career and I think about the acts that I had the most success with over the years, and have continued to have the most success with over the years till today. Hanson had 0 fans, and the Baha Men had 0 fans, and Joss Stone had 0 fans, and Andy Grammer had 0 fans, and AJR had 0 fans, but they were really talented. Right. And so they would come to a record company and we go, OK, you're great. Let's figure out, how to get your music to the world. And I think that the trick that a record company can't do at the moment is to get an artist from 0 to something. I think now the onus is on artists to get somewhere, to get a toehold, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or even Spotify. Like however somebody can get that little toehold so that they're not starting from 0, right? They've got to, and so the record companies are really looking for acts that have managed to get somewhere. I think the majors are trying to look for acts that have managed to get pretty far, actually.
Yeah.
Indies tend to, look for people, I think, who have gotten a little less far, just partially because of economics. Certainly, it's really hard to just say, oh, I think you're so talented, let's go make a record. That almost feels naive at this point in the music business. What I look for now, besides people who are really talented and unique, are people who are committed to trying to use the tools they have available on social media to try to really forge a connection with their fans. So hopefully they've started that process themselves. But it's a big change because I love that idea that somebody walks into your office and they just blow you away because they're so talented. And you go, let's go make a record. That's so fun. And that's kind of not where it is right now.
Does this sort of quantifiable stuff, if a vocal group comes into the office, do you think, oh, that's an extra challenge? Like that's something else we're going to have to figure out? Or, is it still open enough to say, hey, if they're good and they've shown some stuff, then we'll work with that?
I've thought a lot about this, actually. I think that if a group came into my office and we really sat down and we wanted to strategize, like, how can this work? I would say, in addition to creating an identity on social media as a group, I think every member of this group needs to really have their own very strong accounts and push their music, but do it from their own perspective as an individual, or else it's going to be very, very hard to kind of get people's attention. So that it's, and I haven't tried to put that into effect yet. I haven't found that group to do it with, but I think that's what I would want a group to do is to, who's done that really well? The K-pop groups,
right?
The K-pop groups kind of simultaneously present themselves as a group, but then the individual members present themselves as individual personalities and very often go off and have individual solo careers.
And because they're put together like all-star teams in the first place, they do have those kinds of identities, even coming in of like, this is the cute one, this is the bad boy, this is, the cool girl. And so they can sort of spin those off in the way that you're talking.
That was the thing that I was thinking about when you were saying that the Svengalis are no longer a thing, but that's what K-pop is all about.
Right. In Korean pop music culture, music is still seen as entertainment, and we kind of look at it more as artistry. Like we want the audience to believe that everybody who sings is an artist, and an artist is sharing their truth and their intimate truth, and they're telling you something about themselves, and they're sharing secrets, right? And in entertainment, that's not necessary, right? In entertainment, you just have to be great and at singing, dancing, presenting. And I think the K-pop culture is still an entertainment culture, and it's not about the different members of the group, having to sort of be authentic and intimate with the artist. With the audience. And in America, we would reject that. We didn't used to reject it. As recently as a few years ago, groups like One Direction and Fifth Harmony were still happening, and they were coming from reality TV shows. They were really put together by Svengalis. But you don't see that right now at all.
I'm curious if you think that in terms of technology affecting who you sign, who gets signed, who gets the most attention, has it also affected, because of the confessional nature of it, has it affected what people are writing about? It seems to me that contemporary pop, there's a ton of contemporary pop it's about anxiety. It's about loneliness. It's about, just feeling separate from everyone. Is that the times? Is that the technology? Where do you think that comes from?
I would put a lot of the responsibility for that towards the technology. I think that, when somebody shares a message of loneliness or alienation or just sadness or anger, those kinds of emotions can easily go viral on social media. Yeah. Those are things that other people really relate to and want to share. It's like, okay, she's saying the thing that I feel, right? And then you share. Or she made a TikTok about anger and did something, and I feel that way. I'm going to make my own TikTok now about anger, and I'm going to do that thing that she did, or even my own thing, or whatever. So it's a lot of it is about emotions that can be related to and then replicated. Mm-hmm. And I think in some ways, emotional music just lends itself, the same way like in the press now, right? We talk about how
everything's siloed.
But moderation doesn't really travel that well, and it's more extreme views that travel that well. I think at this moment in pop music, it's more like intense emotions that travel really well. Right. And so it lends itself to having more hits that have very intense emotions. You see, there's a lot of anger at your ex on music these days, right? Which is a thing that a lot of people can relate to, and people have gone through similar experiences. So there's a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of alienation, really.
And that, by the way, in my mind, that ties in with women having successes, because the women are stepping up and going, fuck you, you can't treat me like that. There's a lot of that, I think, strength coming out as well.
Right. It used to be that women would sing songs probably written by men, about sort of having their boyfriend leave them and being upset and sad. And now they're just angry, and now they're just getting revenge, and now they're just moving on and forgetting about that guy. It's a totally different set of emotions that are being expressed.
And much less mediated, as you're saying. Yeah.
But this whole idea about technology really affecting how music, reaches people and how the audience, is shaped. Like you really can see it consistently over the generations. There tends to be like sort of mass formats, and then they get replaced by more niche formats. but then always some new mass format shows up. So like in the 60s and 70s, you had AM radio, and that was a format that kind of caused everybody to coalesce around one station in your town, right? Everyone was listening to the same music. Then fragmented FM replaced that, and it became much more niche. But then MTV came and put the audience back together again, and it was a big mass again, right? But then things started to fragment again later on as MTV evolved. YouTube in its earliest moment was a mass format. It was a format that brought people together, and you had these big hits like Call Me Maybe and Gangnam Style. Those were big, massive pop culture phenomena that happened on YouTube. That doesn't happen anymore on YouTube. You don't have hits like that coming out of YouTube anymore because YouTube's become more fragmented. TikTok, when it first started, even that format started as a more mass format as they tried to aggregate audience. And you had Old Town Road, which was the biggest thing ever. And that came from TikTok. But then TikTok started to become much more fragmented, actually much more fragmented than anything has ever been. It's just aimed at you. It's aimed at an audience of one. The guy who I spoke to at TikTok said to me that the biggest mistake people make about TikTok is calling it a social media platform. He said, there's nothing social about TikTok.
It is a personal media
content delivery system. He goes, that's why the main tab on TikTok is called the For You page. It's not for your friends. It's just for you. And so, but it's interesting. I think all these formats start as mass formats and then start to fragment. And a lot of that has to do with economics and trying to target audiences for advertisers and things like that. But I also am a big believer that, the one thing we know about technology is that it changes all the time. So I don't think by any means that TikTok is sort of the final destination of the music industry.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to go out on a limb and say where we're going to be in 5 years?
I don't know. I wish I knew because I could become a billionaire.
Yeah, right.
I was hoping you could tip the hand here and help us out a little bit.
But I will say, I'm pretty sure that in 5 years, it won't look like it looks now. Yeah. I'm sure that something will come to rival TikTok. Technology doesn't stop. And I think that always, like I said, historically, always the new technology does at first, because it's exciting and new and novel, and also because it's trying to aggregate audience, it tends to be more mass before it starts to become more fragmented. And that's always the fun part in music. I think, as all you guys know, the most fun thing in music is when everybody is excited about something and you show up somewhere and all your friends are talking about that exciting new record or exciting new band. And when no one knows the same music as everybody else, it's really a little boring. So I'm pretty hopeful that the next phase will be another phase of mass popularity.
Unification. Yeah. Well spoken. I agree with you 100%.
For folks who want to read the essay, you said you do have it posted on the S-Curve website?
scurverecords.com website, Steve's blog, which is inside the website. Absolutely. And all my, by the way, all my lists for all the years going back probably, 15 years or so, they're all there and they all have essays. So if you're curious what I thought about the music of 2012, go ahead and read that.
I would point people towards your best of 23 playlist also on Spotify, which is extensive and goes well beyond even what we're talking about here.
And the playlist is embedded in the website in the essay, so you can find it right there.
Steve Greenberg, founder, CEO of S-Curve Records. Thanks for clearing that up. Thanks for your insights. Much appreciated. Let's head to the S-Curve website to read and see more of what we were talking about right here today. Steve, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
That is going to wrap it for this edition of Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light. A reminder once again, Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. East, 3 p.m. West, we are doing our audience participation show. We're putting it at a new time. Spread the word. We've got tons of seats in our virtual audience. We would love for you to join us. Alan, how do they do that?
Go straight to sounduppod.com. Find out the information, find out where you can join us, or hit us up with an email or a voicemail at connect@sounduppod.com, and we'll get those on the air as well.
All right, we are going to see you on Sound Up, Sound Off next time. Thanks for joining us.
Sound Up is hosted by Mark Goodman and Alan Light, produced by Roger Coletti, and distributed by Revolver Podcasts. Theme music by Smile from Tokyo. Get Sound Up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, email us at connect@sounduppod.com. We'll see you next time right here on Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light.